that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty to U.S. narcotics charges in a New York court. This comes after his capture under U.S. President Donald Trump. Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as Venezuela's interim president after the capture of Maduro. Addressing the National Assembly, Rodriguez condemned the attack and vowed to restore peace, stability, and national security. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for respect for national sovereignty after the U.S. military operation in Venezuela. He warns of rising instability, regional fallout, and dangerous precedents in international relations. Ireland's Prime Minister Michael Martin is set to hold detailed trade talks with Chinese Premier Li Qiang, focusing on Irish beef exports and China's tariff on EU dairy products. Amid strained EU-China relations, the meeting follows Martin's summit with President Xi Jinping, who called for a long-term EU-China trade framework. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen calls for renewed talks with the United States. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump again suggested annexing the Arctic territory. Jordan and the European Union will hold their first ever bilateral summit on Thursday, bringing together Jordanian King Abdullah with European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The landmark meeting builds on the January 2025 strategic and comprehensive partnership. German embassy charged d'affaires Clemens Hatch and Syria's Minister of Economy and Industry Nidal al-Shar met in Damascus to discuss expanding cooperation in industry, trade, and investment. The talks aim to strengthen economic ties and attract foreign investment as Damascus seeks to revive key sectors amid reconstruction efforts. Western Japan was struck by magnitude 6.2 earthquake. Authorities issued no tsunami warning and reported no major damage, though strong shaking was felt across parts of Shimane Prefecture. Now we start with Venezuela. Toppled Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has pleaded not guilty to narcotics charges at the Manhattan Federal Court in New York. Maduro pleaded innocent in New York federal court to 4 criminal counts: narcoterrorism, cocaine importation, conspiracy, and possession of machine guns and destructive devices. Delcy Rodriguez, formerly Venezuela's vice president, has been formally sworn in to lead the South American country following the abduction of Nicolas Maduro in a United States military operation. Hours after Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as an interim president, unidentified drones flew over Venezuela's presidential palace in Caracas, prompting security forces to open fire. Witnesses reported bursts of gunfire, though a government source has said the situation was under control. According to reports, the incident lasted about a minute. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joins us live from Bulgaria. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Hi. Now looking at this, even though Maduro has said he pleaded not guilty, and even if he's proven innocent, and even if he's not proven innocent, what happens next? The Maduro's government or son back home has called for on his people to bring back Maduro, or Venezuela will try best to bring back Maduro. Do they have any chances, or realistically any path that this is realistically possible?
Well, everything is possible, but I doubt that the US court will find Maduro innocent. Narco-terrorism is a very serious crime, and combined with conspiracy to narco-terrorism, also possession of machine guns and devices, and conspiracy to possess. All the charges look pretty solid. And the next hearing is 17th of March, and it will take time. I expect several months of hearing, of appeal. So Maduro will be held in New York court for long. And for that matter, we have the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, now sworn into the office. So yes, very little chance, let's put it not as a zero, but very little chance of Maduro being pronounced non-guilty and returned back to Caracas. Under the Constitution of Venezuela, elections are held every 6 years. So the current term of Maduro will expire only in 2030, 4 years from now. And the political game is also interesting, not only the legal game. Delcy Rodriguez, the sworn vice president now ad interim, a temporary president, she said in her speech that she is regretting that Maduro is captured in that way and she has to be sworn as a president. However, by the way, the chairman of the National Assembly in Venezuela is her brother, Jorge Rodriguez. And I remember Financial Times last year reported there are talks between Jorge Rodriguez and the Americans to let Maduro into exile so that his sister Delcy Rodriguez becomes a president. And that signals that possibly United States would be happy with Delcy Rodriguez if she behaves, exactly, quoting from Donald Trump, if she behaves, if she doesn't damage the US oil and other interests in Venezuela, it's quite possible that Delcy Rodriguez will stay in power. Moreover, to call elections, you need a National Assembly, but the National Assembly is run mostly by Chavistas with her brother as a chairman of that assembly. So the next elections, I would say the chance for the oppositions, for people like Maria Corina Machado and others, will come with next elections. Obviously, the opposition should put for early elections in the current crisis. They did it already for the last 7-8 years, since 2018. Even then, opposition challenged Maduro that the elections were not fair and rigged. There were even armed attempts to remove Maduro, unsuccessful at the time with Guaido. So it will be a fight, but I hope it's a political fight and not armed forces fight. And one way or another, the question will be, first, whether Maduro will be charged as guilty. So we need to watch the New York court. And second, we need also to watch the political situations in Venezuela, whether the next elections will be only in 2030, or there will be a pressure to hold early elections, which is also possible under the Constitution. There is this clause of recall option by referendum. And if a recall by referendum happens, the elections may be early, which is a chance for the opposition to win.
Right, and you know, Delcy Rodriguez, building on that, Delcy Rodriguez comes from the same party as Maduro, and also right now opposition is underrepresented anyhow in Venezuela. Yes.
Correct, yes.
So, what's your analysis? Can you say that U.S. This operation was successful, because in the end the regime didn't really change?
Well, they captured Maduro. For that matter, it was successful. The person suspected in narco-terrorism. And obviously nobody like, not only in the United States, in the world. By the way, the Europeans didn't recognize Maduro as a legitimate president back in 2018. So we are talking for someone who should go. And for that matter, it was successful to remove Maduro. Now, we need to see Delcy Rodriguez. Again, she's from the same party, you are right, but whether she will be a dictatorial type of, I don't expect that, by the way. I don't think anybody can be similar or worse than Maduro, simply because it doesn't work. The people in Venezuela were not happy. People of Venezuela migrated massively over his term. And for that matter, there is a strong support from the diaspora, those Venezuelans living all over the world, for change. They will demand change. So gradually with the time, the supporters of Maduro will be reduced and they will not have such a strong voice. Chance for Delcy Rodriguez to show a different policy, not to follow the brutal dictatorial regime of Maduro, arresting political prisoners. So chance for her, but also chance for the opposition. Ideally, in those situations, there should be elections. Maybe not immediately, maybe after. By the way, the political opposition is also in exile. Most of the people are not in Venezuela exactly because Maduro issued arrest warrants and all of them left. Edmundo Rodriguez is in Spain and many others are abroad. So they need to return to prepare their campaign to run for next presidential election. So it will take some time to stabilize the political situation. And I for that matter, I don't mind, let's put it this way, Delcy Rodriguez to be in charge. This is under the Constitution. She was the vice president. Also a chance for her to show herself as a different leader and somehow to reform the party and to act in a better way. That's my expectation. I think at the end of the day, maybe not immediately, but in 6 to 11, 12 months, by the end of this year, we will see, and I'm optimistic that the people of Venezuela will need to make a choice ultimately between Delcy Rodriguez or Maria Corina. By the way, two women running for president of Venezuela will be also a good news one day.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for highlighting that, Professor. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, the son of captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro appeared before the National Assembly on Monday, pledging unconditional support for acting President Delcy Rodriguez. Known as Nicolasito, he said the Maduro family stands united behind Rodriguez as she takes on what he called a difficult moment for the country. He has warned that the U.S. capture of his father sets a dangerous global precedent, saying if a head of state can be taken, no nation is safe. In a personal message, he said the family will continue its duties until his parents return home. Meanwhile, in New York, Maduro and his wife pleaded not guilty to narco-terrorism and weapons charges. Their next court date is set for March 17th. Rodriguez has now been formally appointed interim president, calling for a peaceful, respectful, but sovereign relationship with Washington. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Professor Veselin Popovsky. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how might this looking at all this, what has happened since 3rd of January, how might framing a cross-border military operation by U.S. as a law enforcement action, now how has this affected international norms on the use of force, and could this blur legal boundaries that that a lot of countries could eye and also even terrorists could later exploit?
Yes, if we take strictly the international law of the use of force, this is illegal. It is a violation of the United Nations Charter, Article 2.4, which prohibits the threat or use of force to territorial integrity and political independence. Obviously, no doubt, every international lawyer will agree on the illegality of the action. But we have interesting precedents, and one is the similar attack on Panama in 1989 when the then President Manuel Noriega was similarly indicted with similar charges, narco trafficking, and delivered to a court in Florida in 1990 and prosecuted successfully and actually sentenced to 40 years in prison. So we have precedents when, and at that time, again, the international law was basically the same. There is no change in international law. It was considered as illegal, but the court in Florida announced that the president is not in official capacity when international crimes such as drug trafficking occur. In other words, immunity doesn't apply for a president in office because such crimes are outside the official capacity of a president. And that judgment also stands here. If Maduro committed international crimes while he's in office, his immunity doesn't apply in official capacity for narco trafficking. So somehow you can find a line of argumentation to say that a law enforcement operation, as limited as it was for less than 2 hours. He was captured in a very surgical strike. There is no war in Venezuela, by the way. Everybody was talking a Third World War started. And well, it started and finished in 55 minutes. So there is no Third World War. There is no even armed conflict in Venezuela. The United States immediately withdrew the Delta Force and the other. In fact, I don't see a major problem here to argue that a law enforcement operation to capture a suspect. By the way, Adolf Eichmann was similarly captured in Argentina by the Israeli Special Forces back in, was it 1960s, and also delivered to a court in Israel to face charges of Holocaust. So yes, it is a violation, but if the international opinion over time accept that this was a limited surgical operation to capture an international war criminal, that will stand and nobody will challenge that legally.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Veselin Popovsky for joining us today from Bulgaria and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has warned that he would take up arms again if the United States moves to invade his country. Following threats from President Donald Trump, Petro has rejected Trump's accusations linking him to the cocaine trade, calling them false. He has warned that any U.S. military action could spark widespread resistance, saying farmers could rise up as guerrillas and unleash the jaguar of the people. Petro has a former leftist guerrilla who demobilized in the 1990s, emphasized his commitment to defending Colombia's sovereignty despite having sworn never to use weapons again. The Colombian defense minister has already reinforced the president's security tensions. They have escalated after Trump threatened action similar to his recent operation in Venezuela to remove Nicolas Maduro. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joined us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, Major General Dr., how does President Petro's rhetoric, about armed resistance reflect his history and also the current strain in U.S.-Colombia relations? Is he poking President Trump? How should we see this?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me for this discussion. See, what is happening in Latin America is that today, after what has happened to Venezuela, the radar is on Cuba and Colombia, because these are the two countries which are on Trump's radar, and relations with these two countries, as far as the US is concerned, are not very good. So the Cuban president, or Colombian president in question, he is making a statement which both functions as a sovereignty assertion and a political signal, because he's positioning himself as a defender of national independence against external military threats. And he is rejecting narratives of Colombian complicity in criminal networks, because he understands that President Trump will try to accuse Colombia of a similar kind of a narco terrorism. So he's trying to send a strong signal to the United States that we will fight it out with whatever we have. So that is his own masses in his own country. He is kind of reassuring them that we will resist any kind of pressure from the United States or any kind of aggression from the United States. And uh, a confrontation, as we are seeing even in verbal terms between Colombia and the United States, could destabilize the regional security frameworks in that country. And though the likelihood of any military action against Colombia is not foreseen in the near future, but potentially, I think a message has gone across from President Trump that these countries also uh, need to cooperate on drug trafficking and border security, and realign political blocs in Latin America with the US foreign policy, because a larger actually message is going here in terms of Monroe Doctrine 2.0, as well as the national security strategy of the United States, which has recently been announced. It's very, very clear now that United States means business, and uh, it has set a precedence here in Venezuela now, and I think the other countries are making a note of it, and that is why this Petro's giving a statement like that, because he is also feeling challenged now, and because strategic signaling has been made by the United States, so he is trying to counter it in his own manner. Possibly he wants to tell the United States that we are not going to be cowed down by any kind of these kind of statements, and also he's trying to address his own public and try to gain or garner more support that the country will not buckle down to pressure.
So, building on that, Major General Doctor, you mentioned counter in his manner. Is there any cards or common ground that U.S. and Colombia can use at this moment so that it doesn't escalate to the situation like what happened with Maduro?
You see, what happens is when you have a breakdown of communication, as we have seen in any conflict, if you read about conflict management also, and if you understand that why conflicts take place in regions, even if we study the Ukraine and the Russian war, uh, at some point of time there is a breakdown of communication. At some point of time there is a lack of trust. So two important aspects I would like to highlight here is, one is communication and the other is trust. So these two factors, if you are able to establish between two countries, then the chances of confrontation diminish. So answering a question here, I think it is very, very imperative that uh, Colombia gets into a discussion mode, a diplomacy mode, rather than a confrontation mode, because a confrontation with the United States is not going to pay any great dividends. You may be able to satisfy your own policy in terms of sovereignty, in terms of nationality, and all those sentiments are there in a country. People in Ukraine also have been fighting for the last 4 years for these sentiments, and even Colombia will also tend to fight. But then You see, at the end of the day, being a leader of a nation, you are also responsible for the well-being of every citizen of your country, and you don't want your citizen to get affected, because if there is a war-like situation in Colombia, their economy, as it is, not doing too well, and it is going to impinge upon the daily lives and security of its own citizens. So I feel a more pragmatic approach is warranted under the present circumstances.
With that, I would like to thank Major General Dr. Kochhar for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving the focus to Bangladesh, another Hindu person identified as Rana Pratap has been shot dead by unidentified assailants in Bangladesh's Jessore district. The killing marks the fifth fatal attack on members of Bangladesh's Hindu community in the past 3 weeks, raising serious concerns over law and order amid ongoing unrest and protests across the country. The Hindu victim was also the acting editor of newspaper called Dainik BD Khabar. According to witnesses and police sources, the assailants opened fire on Rana Pratap while he was in Kopalia Bazar. He died on the spot as a result of multiple bullet injuries. Earlier incidents include the lynching of Deepu Chandra Das, a Hindu garment factory worker who was beaten to death during mob violence. Amrit Mondal, another Hindu man who was also reported killed in connection with the recent unrest. Now we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now looking at this unfortunate rise in hate crimes towards minority in Bangladesh, what should Bangladesh government prioritize, and also how can maybe Hindu minority protect themselves over there?
Very interesting question, Osama, because what is happening in Bangladesh is that the Islamic mob power is gaining ground, and it is disregarding the law and order situation or law and order machinery in the country. Or I could qualify my statement by saying that the law and order machinery in the country is not effective at all, because any head of government, and if Mohammed Yunus means business, he can easily put an end to these kind of activities and try to arrest and try to identify those elements in the society who can cause this sort of a problem, because every country has its own intelligence network, and you can preempt, you can carry out prior arrests of people who have such kind of tendencies to do that. So possibly that is not happening, and Hindus roughly account for 6% of the population of Bangladesh. So predominantly it's a Muslim country. 94 to 95% people in Bangladesh are Muslims, and the elections are around the corner. There is an anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh. All the election rallies which are being undertaken by the BNP or the Jamaat-e-Islami or other parties are focusing on an anti-India sentiment, and it's linked to Sheikh Hasina and the anger people had in 2024 riots and all. So it is very evident that a minority population is being targeted, and here India has to step up the ante. See, we have been following a policy of wait and watch for too long. Twice their High Commissioner has been summoned, a demarche has been issued. Our Foreign Secretary has visited Bangladesh and met Mohammed Yunus, but all this thing is not working. And therefore, I think possibly till elections, India would not be taking out any major action against Bangladesh till at least 12th of February, because that is the time possibly outcome of elections and the way forward of Bangladesh and India relations this IPL episode also, in which one player of Bangladesh was banned, and then the Bangladesh government took a stance that they will not send the team. This is not going to work because these are very small measures. As a matter of fact, it's going to create more differences between the two nations, because you know cricket is a religion in India, and it is also a religion in Bangladesh. So
Yes.
a large number of people follow it. So if you take actions like this, you are further alienating the people of Bangladesh. So this is my opinion, that these kind of actions should be avoided by India, because it is going to alienate the people of Bangladesh. You are not targeting a government here, you are targeting the
Yes.
people. So
Major
I think a more coercive approach is should be in the offing in times to come, and possibly till elections we may have to wait and watch.
With that, I would like to thank Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Thailand. Thailand's army has said that Cambodia has claimed it had no intention to fire into Thai territory after a fresh cross-border incident. Bangkok has reported that Cambodian forces violated a 10-day-old truce, but Phnom Penh has called it an operational error. Thai officials said their military contacted Cambodian counterparts who insisted the firing was accidental. Both sides are working to clarify the situation and prevent further misunderstandings along the border. Tensions remain high, but officials stress dialogue to maintain peace in the disputed area. Now we move on to our next news. Humanoid robots developed by Hyundai Motor Group are set to be deployed at its U.S. factory in Georgia starting in 2028. The Atlas robots unveiled at Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas will initially handle parts sequencing, with plans to expand into assembly and heavier repetitive tasks by 2030. Meanwhile, the robots have been designed to reduce physical strain on workers and will be rolled out across Hyundai's manufacturing sites as part of a physical AI initiative. However, concerns over potential job losses have been acknowledged, but it has been emphasized that humans will still be required to maintain and train the robots. Safety and efficiency of the robots are being enhanced through collaborations with NVIDIA and Google, and the technology is expected to become a leading segment of the industrial market. Let's listen in.
Like K-pop stars, but they are built for a higher purpose: to cooperate, to assist, to co-work, to do hazardous jobs, and many other things for us and with us. This is technology that is built for humanity. Technology that supports us, extends our capabilities, makes our work safer, and in some cases more meaningful.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.